Hey, I went to a glacier theme party last night. It was pretty chill. That's my joke for the day. I want to talk to you today about ice, which was definitely at the party last night. But there's a couple kinds of ice, and we should be concerned with mainly land ice as far as ocean water level rising, sea level rise, and I'm sure you've heard about that. So here's the difference. Now, if you have some ice floating in the ocean, such as in the Arctic by the North Pole, water floating, icebergs floating, those ice cubes or icebergs would displace their space in that water so that when they melt, eventually, if it warms too much, they'll melt and the water level will not change. That's sea ice, okay? Sea ice. The opposite is the land ice, just like this, that's not on any water. It's just sitting on the land. If that melts, it's going to raise the water level in my glass, or it will raise the water level from the land to where it runs down to into the ocean or into the sea. That's the difference of sea ice and land ice, okay? What also happens is there can be glaciers. Now, who has ever seen a glacier? Raise your hand if you ever have. Glaciers are icebergs, so to speak, that form on land, and normally they form in a place where it's going to be cold pretty much year-round. Okay, for example, Greenland, Antarctica at the South Pole is a big land mass, one of the continents, and is covered basically by glaciers, land ice. Okay, so that's land ice. And then there's sea ice that would be floating like an iceberg. So here we see a picture of what happens when there is land ice formed quite often, especially like at Antarctica. There becomes an ice shelf that extends out into the ocean from that glacier. Okay, and as long as the temperature is relatively maintained, the glacier will stay as it is and not be melting more, not be sending more water down the hill of the land into the ocean. But if ocean water gets warmer, if the air gets warmer, then it's going to start acting on this glacier and melting it. It can also cause fissures or cracks in the glacier leading out this way. And the more those cracks fill with water, as some of the glacier melts from the warming, it might cause the cracks to widen and become even weaker and weaker. And before you know it, from the water pressure underneath of the warm water under the ice shelf, and from this pressure from the top, the shelf might break off and form a floating iceberg. But primarily what we're concerned about here is that this glacier can be melting and can be sending rivulets of water down into the ocean this way, can be sending rivulets of water across the top of the ice shelf and into the ocean. And then, of course, when the ice shelf breaks, some of the glacier from the land is also going to end up in the ocean. And any of that is adding to the sea level rise. If you have lived in an ocean community that borders the ocean, or maybe on an island at some time in your life, you know that there is an impact, that it's sometimes harder to sustain life the way we want to live when we have flooding regularly in those areas. Perhaps we can't even grow crops or grow a garden because of the sea ice, the salty seawater, salty seawater coming inland. So it's a problem, and it definitely impacts island and coastal communities, the rise of the sea level. Now, here's some statistics, as I always like to give you statistics. So in Antarctica, since 2002, there have been 137 billion tons of ice loss per year. Okay? Even worse, Greenland, 268 billion tons of loss of sea ice since 2002 per year. That's a lot of water that's melting off of the land and going into the oceans. Okay, these numbers come from the NASA vital statistics. Okay, the problem is serious if you live in a coastal area or if you live in the islands, as I mentioned. There's ways that all of us can help, and that's to reduce our impact mostly through less use of fossil fuels, okay? And there's so many other ideas too that are all outlined in my book, noted on the YouTube page. It's Everyday Choices for the Earth. Hope through our multiplied actions. We can make a difference. We can make the sea level rise to a minimum, and we can reduce global warming. Look in the book for ideas. Future generations will thank you.